happy day after Thanksgiving. And welcome to you are looking at us on Truth to Power. And we are very, very blessed to have you join us today. To those of you that had a very, very enjoyable Thanksgiving, we pray that you enjoyed it with your family and friends. And those of you that may have had to work on Thursday and still got a chance to enjoy some of the holiday with family and friends, we pray that all was well with that at the same time. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin. I've been fortunate today, especially with this inclement weather today, to have two very special guests in the studio with me. One is the 10th Congressional District Chair, and his name is Mr. Joel Rutherford. I'm sure that there's probably not too many people in Macomb County that don't know who he is, as well as a lot of legislators, elected officials, and public servants that all know Mr. Joel Rutherford. So, Joel, we are very, very fortunate to have you. And thank you for coming in, especially on a very inclement day like what it's turned out to be today. So thank you for coming in to the show and be a guest on Truth to Power today.
Thank you for having me, Darwin.
And then we are also joined in the studio by the newly elected, I want to say, he's a newly elected Macomb County Commissioner, and he also is no stranger to Macomb County politics, and his name is Mr. Michael Howard. And Michael, I'll let you tell in terms of, I know you were telling me about the district and how your district encompasses a lot of Macomb County, so like places like Centerline, Warren, and other parts, of the vicinity. But when we get into the conversation, I'll let you go into more detail about where, your district encompasses. And so, Michael, again, just as I said to Joel, I'm very, very pleased to have you on the show today with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in the day after the holiday.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. But I guess I would be remiss, because everybody knows the main topic of conversation, it seems like, besides whether or not they got enough to eat or if they're so full after having ate, Thanksgiving Day dinner with their family and friends, are these young men that are representational of the city of Detroit and other parts around, and those happen to be the Detroit Lions. So I know a lot of people went to the parade, and then after the parade, they enjoyed what I thought was a very enjoyable football game. A lot of people say it was too close for comfort, but I think that there weren't too many people that left early from seeing the game. So I'll just get your quick little viewpoints, gentlemen, before we get started. Joe, what did you think of the game yesterday?
Oh, the game was interesting. It definitely was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. But hey, a win's a win. That's the whole thing about it in the NFL. They won. They're 11-1 now. So, I mean, they're looking good. They just, got some injuries and everything, but that happens to every team. So I'm just glad to see them get that victory. And then next week, they've got another game coming up. So they got a tough schedule for the rest of the season. But the way they're playing, they're taking care of business.
Good assessment. We should make sure that think about you as probably one of the new commentators or something to be on ESPN. One of those there. Michael, what's your thoughts about the Lions real quick?
I think they're just such a great representation of the grit of Detroit, and like, what does Detroit really mean? And you're seeing the powerhouse that our city really is, especially on the defensive side. All our sports teams are known for the defense. I'm just excited for that. Sad Adrian Hutcherson is still injured, so I look for his eventual return, but Sonic and Knuckles are taking care of things out on the field, and just got to keep pushing.
Spoken like Joe, like a true Macomb County commissioner. But Michael, I know you were saying before we came on the show today, I know you were saying that there may be the curse that the Lions have in terms of saying that every time that you may have watched the game, the Lions have lost. But
yes,
we're going to break those traditional curses like that because, we know. So I don't want you not to watch the game thinking in terms of say that you might cause them to lose. But we're breaking that curse, so we're going to lift that curse off of you so that
I
you can watch the
appreciate
game
it.
without having to worry about them losing. Because I could imagine yesterday you probably were like just shivering in your boots, probably watching.
I watched it after the fact.
Yeah, so that way you saw the win first, and then you said something different afterwards. But gentlemen, thank you again for coming on Truth to Power today. But let me start, Joe. Your district that you cover is pretty much like in the 10th district. So talk about where your district is at, and talk about, some of the things that are going on in the 10th district and what you would like to see done or what you've been doing. And I know the re-election is coming up in February for the persons that are representational in the 10th district, and then at the same time too, we know that that's Congressman John James represents that district. Right. So talk about, in terms of, say, with him being a Republican, and I know, in terms of he just got recently reelected, to that seat again. But what are some of the projections that you think that he has for the district, and how do you think that the district can work with him, especially being in that and as a Republican? And whereas we've got Democrats in the district, so how do the Democrats and the Republicans going to work together with him as a newly elected or reelected congressman?
Well, that's a good question, Darwin, because, that's a difficulty I've had over the last 2 years, is really just trying to connect with him in any way. He hasn't done any town halls. He hasn't done any, open public type, meetings or whatever that people could come in and just, talk with him, kind of find out what's going on and ask questions. It's been very controlled. The 10th district runs from the southern part of Macomb County up basically to Hall Road, M59, then goes west, part of Shelby Township, then up in Rochester Hills. So, it's a good size area. We just, at least and from my perspective, I just haven't seen him much, especially when it comes to the southern end of the district. He seems to stay pretty much north of M59 or Hall Road. And it's sad to me because the fact of it is whoever gets elected should represent everybody in the district, not just, kind of pick and choose. But it's been difficult. I mean, it really has. It's one of these things that, I've reached out to him. I mean, we saw it from the last election that, he chose not to debate Carl Merlinga, and that was his choice. It was something he just felt like he didn't need to do. Sadly, it didn't go the way we were hoping it would. Carl's a good guy. And I think going forward, what we're going to see is, I think we're going to see some new candidates rise up. I really do. I think that, it's just that situation where, sometimes you run, you come close. This time you're not as close, and maybe it's time to say, hey, maybe we need to do something different. So, because we can win in the district, we just have to, really have somebody out there that's really connecting with people. There are, it showed, there's a lot of Republicans in our district, and the thing is they turned out. And that's really what we have to do, is basically find those Democratic voters that are willing to come out and vote. Because I think, it kind of showed throughout. I mean, not just in the district, but nationwide, a lot of people stayed home. And that's the sad part about it.
Well, that kind of leads up to another question, Joe. So what happened? I mean, in terms of, say, because we know that Vice President Harris was counting on winning the support, especially from Michigan. Mm-hmm. And then looking at, I know that, Macomb County is kind of like that little battleground area where it could go Republican, could go Democrat. But what happened? What was your assessment about what did happen?
I mean, part of it, I think, was just, the runway was too short. You can't have 105 days to run a presidential election. And especially, when you have a vice president that, at least from my perspective, has been kind of kept on the side, and not really involved. I mean, they've said, oh, she's going to be doing this, doing that. But you have to get those things out there. People have to know, like, hey, this is what they've been doing. And I think that was a big problem. The other problem is, to me, this is like we had talked about before the show. I was disappointed in the fact that with all the money that they raised, how it just didn't get spent to me in ways that were really productive. You know, I mean, it's one thing that black media was left out. I think that they needed to spend more money there. They spent some, but you know, you just can't break off a little hair and nail money and think that that's enough, because the fact of it is we're just not going to accept that anymore. You know, but I think the thing about it is, and what people need to understand when it comes to national races like that, you know, the consultants are the ones that win, regardless of who wins or who loses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if you're looking at $250 million spent, say, on TV ads, consultants are getting 20% of that. And to me, what we have to do as a party is get the people that are involved back in charge of it, and not have the consultants in charge, because, you know, we have to do things differently. You know, we have to. I mean, you know, I was disappointed that, you know, Vice President Harris, you know, didn't really do a rally in Macomb County. I was surprised that, you know, she was kind of dragging Liz Cheney around, because I was like, I don't know what good that's going to do, you know, because again, you know, and I hate to make everything racial, but I think there's one of the things I tend to look at is this way. You know, she was the first Black and South Asian woman to run. And I think still you see not just white men, but also white women voted for the other side. And I think that brings up something that we have a problem in this country that a lot of times we just don't want to face. And that has to be addressed, because until we can get people convinced to vote for what's best for their own interests and get past this racial divide and everything else, I think, unfortunately, we're stuck right now. We're stuck with four years and, you know, a couple of years of John James, and who knows what he's going to do after.
Yeah, because I think before I, you know, asked Michael a couple of questions, then Joe, so I saw President-elect Trump there in Macomb County quite a bit.
Yes.
Why did he feel that was kind of, you know, was it that he was really trying to rally those voters around him, that he thought that he would get more support there in Macomb County, you know, in your district?
Sure. Yeah, because the fact of it is that he made people comfortable to put on their little red hats and put all their little signs up and do all the rest of this stuff, because he was there. And the thing is, for a lot of people, if you're there, that means you care. And
I saw a lot of people that had the hats on, and even some that even had different color hats on.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, some that had the black, you know, Make America Great hats, and some that had the red ones. So I guess somebody was saying it was kind of like a separation of how much support you gave to his campaign as to what color hat that you wore.
It could be. It could be. I tell you. But you know, again,
because I see him now wearing, a lot of times I see him now wearing the black hat.
Oh yeah.
So I guess he gave himself the most support, you know, in the election.
Well, I mean, you know, the billionaires all coalesced behind him, and that's something to me that I'm an old guy and I can't understand that. Billionaires are going to not look out for just, you know, working folks. Mm-hmm. They'll take advantage of you. They will certainly do whatever they can to get your vote, but they're not going to do anything for you. I mean, you know, you see already, you know, what Trump do. He's got all these billionaires he wants in his cabinet. He's got Elon Musk up there and Ramaswamy or whatever, and they're going to make cuts. And I guarantee you, it's going to be regular folks that are going to get hurt. And that's the sad part. Yeah. So I guess, you know, that's why they got that big hashtag now, FAFO, you know, so I guess people are just going to have to find out.
Well, Michael, you congratulations on, you know, your election to now being the Macomb County Commissioner. What district and what is the area that you represent now?
Yeah, so thank you for having me on again, Michael Howard. I represent Macomb County Commissioner District 12, which is 8 Mile to 12 Mile, DeQuinder to Hoover. So it's most of South Warren and then all of the city of Centerline. And so it's predominantly south of 696.
Okay. And so when you ran your campaign, what were the things that you were telling the people in your district that you were going to do for your district?
Yeah, I really focus on kitchen table issues, things that like really felt needs. You know, every day I drive on Mound Road. Mound Road is a county road and it's an absolute disaster south of 696. It's the only section of Mound Road that has not been repaired by the county. So that was my number one issue. You know, you look at other things about how the county has a $1.3 billion budget. and I was knocking on doors and just asking people, do you feel like you've experienced the allocation of that budget to our district? And the answer most often was no. And so looking at, community mental health, the Mount Clemens is where our base is. We have a lot of community mental health resources for all of Macomb County, but just because we have them, are they accessible to the people in the district? And so, when you have someone going to a mental health crisis, they have to drive 40 minutes to Mount Clemens, on a snowy day. And it's just challenging. So I was highlighting the challenges where our county has a lot of great resources, but how do you just bring those resources back to the district?
So, Michael, now I know we were talking before the break, or before we got on air, and I know you were talking about some initiatives that you want to do, especially in trying to go and groom upcoming individuals that may think about running for public office. But can you speak to that?
Yeah. So when I ran for office this last time, I ran for office twice. I ran for city council in Warren. I lost by 139 votes. And I thought, I'm done. It was one of the hardest things was to raise money.
So let me ask this question. So what did you learn after you ran for that position for city council? What did you learn? I know you were saying you might be done, but what did you learn? What was the turning point with you that said, hey, I got more work that I need to do in a elected official position?
I think the two things that stand out is I was exhausted after running for political office is extremely challenging. It's hard on the individual running. It's very, very hard on the family. As a husband with 3 kids, it was just really difficult. And I knew there was still work to be done. And I just said, I ran for office. I lost. Maybe it wasn't my time. Maybe it wasn't me. And I can still do things to serve my community outside of public office. When I had community members like Joel Rutherford and, genuinely like 40 other individuals come around me and say, hey, we think you should consider running again. I was like, I'm going to respect my elders. I'm going to respect my community members, and I'm going to put my hat in the race. When not just political people, but I'm in the grocery store and somebody came up and was like, I remember you. You should run for office again. I'm like, I have no clue who you are, but thank you for the suggestion. And so with that, learning the struggles of being a first-time candidate and now a second-time candidate who won, I learned a lot of things. My political mentor is Angela Rogancy, who's the current Warren City Council president. And she really helped me learn how to raise money. And unfortunately, that's one of the most important aspects of fundraising. Running for office is fundraising and knocking on doors and connecting with folks. And so that was something that I really lacked the first time I ran for office, didn't really know how to do it as well as I do now. And so that was one of the biggest difference on why I was more successful. And I think the messaging as well.
So now you're looking at trying to go and groom people in the future that may want to run for an elected official or public office. So what suggestions would you say to them, like another Michael Howard, aged person that wants to run, maybe like for city council or for another elected official position?
Yeah, I would tell someone, if you're interested in running for office, I would encourage you first to work on a campaign so you can kind of educate yourself around it.
To work with somebody else's campaign?
Yeah.
Okay.
Work on someone else's campaign first. That's what I did. I worked for a few state house members and some other city folks before I ran the first time. And so that gives you more of an insider view of what really it means to run for office. But part of that is we are trying to raise funds. We're trying to launch a candidate school so that when someone does decide to run for the first time, that they're successful. And so we started an initiative called Black Leadership Action Fund, where we're raising funds for candidates to be able to support them when they need the money early in their primaries. We want to make sure that they're running for the right office, because somebody might have a great idea and they really care about housing, so they run for county commission. Well, county commission isn't really the spot that, if you want to do an initiative on affordable housing, you really need to look at, a mayor's race or a state rep race, or potentially some city councils, depending on how your city is orchestrated. Mm-hmm. And so I want to make sure folks are running for the right reasons and in the right races, and then make sure they know how to. We saw struggles over the last several years, whether people were moved off the ballot because of signature issues or they filed paperwork wrong. And so we don't, for us, sometimes we might only have one shot. I do recognize, I'm privileged enough to be able to run for office 2 years in a row. And that's exhaustively challenging on a family. And so I have a great wife who is the backbone of our family, who's like, keep going. And so we want to make sure that somebody who might only have one shot or might not have the support network yet that I have, we want to make sure they're successful the first time. So that's why we launched the Black Leadership Action Fund.com.
Is there any contact information that you could give? So if somebody has an interest, if they want to help donate money to your interest or, what you're planning on doing, or they're interested in getting more information, is there a website or a phone number that they can reach out to you or to others that, are involved in this?
Yes, sir. So our website is blackleadershipactionfund.com. You can reach out to me directly. My number is 586-213-3197. We have a board that we're working on raising a fund. So our goal is to recruit people to donate small dollar donations. So our goal is to reach 1,000 people donating $15 a month. If you multiply that out, it's a substantial amount of money that can really launch people into successful political careers earlier in their primaries. Research shows that Black candidates get about 1.2% to 1.8% of the billions of dollars that are donated to political campaigns. And we know that fundraising and sometimes dictates most of these elections because you have to get your message out. You can have the best message, you can have the best, whether you're a business owner, the best product, but if no one knows you exist, then you can't be successful. And so we want to be able to support candidates early in their primaries, which is the number one indicator whether someone will be successful, how much support they have early in their primary.
Well, Joe, let me ask you this too. So kind of piggybacking a little bit on what Michael was saying, we know that there's definitely a need to get people more understanding the civic engagement process, knowing in terms, say, like what Michael was saying about knowing even just what a commissioner does, knowing the difference between a commissioner and a city council person, and knowing the three branches of government, knowing in terms of, say, about what a state rep does, what a state senator does, what a city council person does, and what the mayor, does, as Michael so eloquently was, mentioning about certain things. If you want to do, this is how you go about doing it. Mm-hmm. But what's your thoughts in terms, say, about that, especially with trying to get more people engaged in the civic, engagement process?
That comes through education. And that's something to me that the Democratic Party as a whole has truly just fallen by the wayside about. Because what happens is you can't just fall into each election cycle and then try to get everybody out. You got to educate folks. I always say, don't be upset that people don't know. Because right now you got too many people work 2-3 jobs. They're just trying to keep a roof over their head and food on the table. So we need to educate people, but we need to do that when there isn't an election. And that's where a lot of times for those funds, because like Michael said, it's true. Candidates need money. And especially if you talk about Black candidates. And the other thing people have to understand is the primary election is what matters, because that's where a lot of times Black candidates aren't able to get through, because if they don't get the votes, then they're not going to make it to the general. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those things you have to educate people about how important that is.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things that people don't understand too, looking at the different positions. Like, so Michael, your position, your office is how many years?
It's 4 years.
For 4 years.
Yes, sir.
And that's what some people don't understand. I think how many years, like a state rep, state senator, knowing in terms of, say, how, when, if somebody was interested in running for, like, even a commissioner position, when that position becomes open for election again. But
yeah, and just to touch on what Joel just said about why primaries matter, my race was really determined in the primary election because the way the district boundaries are drawn. My race was a hard fought race in the primary. I thankfully came through with winning in a 4-person race, 37% of the vote. And then in the general election, it was a landslide, because the way the district boundaries, a Republican didn't even run against me because they knew that they wouldn't be, they get 10, 15% of the vote. And so for a lot of Black candidates and candidates of color in general, the way where we live at, sometimes our elections are really genuinely determined in the primary, whether you're talking about a state house race, like State Representative Donovan McKinney, who has a majority, his district is changing now, but it's going to be a majority Black district. That election really is determined in the primary.
Let me ask you this other question. When I met you through Donovan McKinney,
Yes,
state representative. How has Donovan inspired you in terms of, say, as, you know, I know we can't consider him as being one of the elder statespeople, you know, because he and you are probably close in, you know, in age proximity, but, you know, compared to like the young folks like me and Joel, you know, but, looking at you, Donovan, how has, you know, looking at how Donovan may have inspired you, Michael, what did he do? Maybe even with his campaign when he was running for office?
So this is really exciting for me. So when I was sitting at a Warren City Council meeting and I saw Donovan McKinney come in and he introduced himself at the podium, you know, hey, my name is Donovan McKinney. I'm running for state rep, blah, 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 and talk to the city council and those in the crowd. I'm sitting in the back of the auditorium. I'm like, does this man know where he is at right now in the city of Warren? And so I didn't really connect with him until actually after he had won this election. And so when I got to meet him, what I realized is a few things. One, we are very close in age. He's just a few months older than me. I think just under a year. We went to the same elementary school. We both went to Mason Elementary School. He was a year above me. And then so much of how he operates, it is directly linked to our mutual faith in God. And so when he talks about being authentically a believer and authentically caring for God's people, that was really inspiring. And then just delivering on those promises. You know, he ran for office on, you know, these subjects and then delivered when he got into office. And I think that is rare, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's where the difference comes in it. Gentlemen, we got to take a quick break. So you are watching Truth to Power. My special guest today is Mr. Joe Rutherford and Mr. Michael Howard. And stay tuned and we will be back shortly.
Feel good about your future with tuition-free programs at Wayne County Community College District. Whether you want to be in healthcare, computer science, the culinary arts, digital media, or robotics and automation for the next generation of vehicles, WCCCD has you covered. A full range of programs to achieve your goals, fit your schedule, and give you all the support you need to be successful. All of it tuition-free. Now there's something to feel good about. Register today at wcccd.edu.
Florine Jackson thought she had it all until she was faced with the challenges of raising an autistic child. Inspired by autism is her brutally honest journey, filled with heartbreak and triumph. Get your copy and find the support you deserve today by visiting www.claudinejackson.tv.
TV33 is moving to WHPS TV channel 15.2. Make sure to rescan the channels on your TV. Then go to WHPS channel 15.2 to pick up TV33 and all of your favorite shows. The move is on, and we want you to move with us to WHPS channel 15.2.
Justice for Mario Willis. Truth. Facts. Evidence. Mattered. Log into justiceformariowillis.com. Read for yourself.
and you're watching Truth to Power, and I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we have just been joined by a young man who's no stranger to Truth to Power, and his name is Mr. Norman Clement. Mr. Clement, thank you for coming in to Truth to Power today. I know you've been pretty much like, my mainstay, since Truth to Power started, but we are fortunate to have you to come in today. How was your Thanksgiving, Norman?
I was blessed, man. Got a chance to spend with some family, talk to some friends, watched the game, went down to the parade. So we had a great time, man. Great time to relax, reflect, and be thankful for those who are still here, and thankful for those ones who passed on, but you left the knowledge for us to keep pushing.
Well, one thing that it was interesting that Joel had mentioned in the first part of the show was talking about how, a lot of the monies that could have been generated to the C4s wasn't.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
I think that was a crushing heel. I think a lot of the times I believe that, let's keep it frank. We were taken advantage of. I think C4s were ready to set up, ready to go. I think we answered the call. A lot of the C3s did a lot of the heavy lifting just to get out the vote. That's their job, to get out the vote. Educated, nonpartisan. That's why you saw the judges and, the Supreme Court, those type of votes were trailing higher than the elected votes of Ms. Harris, because at the end of the day, the C3s did the work on the nonpartisan issues. Because you had 22 people running for these state boards, you had these millages going on. So nonpartisans, they're going to do their work. They did the job. The C4s are coming in to specifically talk about candidates, talk about those issues, talk about really respective work for why you should vote for this candidate. And we also understand that, the Republicans have been running since 2020. Trump has been on the ballot since 2020, since he's lost. And what he's done is tapping into space where it's not about just the ads. He tapped into the podcast space. He tapped into those untraditional markets where sometimes that C4 the old traditional heads, folks that know it all, didn't listen to the ground troops and tell them, hey, go into those spaces now. They didn't do that. And so at the end of the day, the C4s were set up, ready to go. We can't do work. I know our C4, we didn't receive any funds from the candidates, not one dime. And so a lot of us stuff, we did stuff on pro bono because it had to be done. Other C4s got a little bit, but you're getting money 2 days before the election, 3 days before the election, and make it work. So someone up top there who's making decision maker up there decided right then and there, well, black folks are going to vote for black folks because it's her, it's a story. They're going to make it do what it do. So we fixed our black problem. That's racism in itself. And so that's the problem where we have to go to these the Dems have to go to those traditional programs, those traditional marketing strategies that they still use. Some may be their friends, some they may be family members, and you have to cut that off and say, hey, your services are no longer needed. I mean, if I hear James Carville and those folks again talking about it's the economy, people worry about the economy. You can't tell me that, because right now, more tickets were bought on airlines, more people are out at the mall spending money, more people are out here doing all this stuff, buying this, buying that. So if you're worried about the economy, you have enough care about to go ahead and spend money right now. So that doesn't jive with me. And so we have to really do a job to understand that, hey, it's a different landscape, it's a different trend, but also too, simple talking points won't work.
Right. And you got a great point. Now, let me ask both of you too. What is Joel, I'll refer to you first on this one. What do you think is the political landscape for the Democratic Party for the state of Michigan? Because right now, it's getting publicly known that the party chair, LeVar Barnes, is not seeking re-election. So now there's a lot of people that are pretty much like trying to decide who's going to run or who they're going to try and encourage to run. So what are you hearing in terms of, say, about, what may happen or what's going to be, because that election is coming up in February of next year. So what are you hearing? And I'll ask you first, Joel, and Norman, I'll ask you. What are you hearing?
I'm hearing that there's a lot of people that are interested. But
and what do you think that the things that they need to, whoever is running for that office, what do you think that they need to do to ensure getting the Democratic Party back united together again?
I think one of the biggest things they need to do is stop being scared. You know, if we want to make progress, we have to be bold. You know, we have to do things that people need and not just, you know, like they say, talk to talk, but walk to walk. And unfortunately, the party has just not done that. You know, they played it safe, and you see where safe has gotten them. You know, it's just like, you know, Norman mentioned earlier, you know, it's just where's money being spent? You know, and he made a great point about that, because I know for money, for us and others, you know, even some of the Black caucuses and stuff, the money shows up so late. I'm like, look, we're good, but we can't turn water into wine. So, I mean, you have to do things in a way that makes sense. You have to educate voters, and that takes time. But you have to be bold. You know, you have to show something. And when you make some, you know, you get some wins, you have to brag about it. And that's one of the things, to me, as a leader, that's what we have to have. We can't continue playing it safe. That's not working. And it shows that we're losing ground in the state. So, you know, whoever gets in that position, I hope that they bring in some people that are actually people from on the ground. You know what I mean? And not just the party elite, so to speak, because it seems like so many of them have just lost touch of what's really going on.
And they're really going to have to put a whole lot of effort into trying to bring Macomb County Dems back,
yes.
You know, into the fold. So what's your thoughts on that part?
Oh, Macomb County, there's a lot of Democrats there, but again, you got to give them a reason to show up. And I think the fact of it is again, as long as you just go along with the same old tired talking points, if you just go along with the same old thing that you've done, you know, yeah. You know, like you had said, I don't want to hear any more from James Carville. He lives in Louisiana. He can't even get his own state vote out. So don't tell me about what we need to be doing nationally. Get some new people in there, get some young folks. Like you said, February is when the election is. I know for me as chair of the 10th, I won't be running again because I want to see younger people in there, because there needs to be a long-term strategy. That's why I'd ask anybody that wants to be in a leadership role, what's your long-term goals? What are you planning on doing? And you know, get people around you that can help make that happen.
But you've been recognized by the governor for doing something. What were you recognized? What was the Governor Whitmer? What did she recognize you as?
You know, she appointed me to the Black Leadership Advisory Council, a great group of people. You know, but when I decided to run for chair and things with the 10th, I stepped away because, again, I think, you know, it's easy to collect a lot of titles, but it's about the work that you do. And for me, I had to take the 10th from the beginning because we had nothing really. Because what happened was there was no money, there was no infrastructure, anything to get that started. Well, we've done that now. But it's time for me to say, hey, you know what? I turned 70 this year. I'll step away and let somebody else do it that can be there for, say, the next 5 years or more, that can actually do something to continue some progress. Because we can win in Macomb County, but it's going to take time. Look at Oakland County. It took them 10 years to basically get to where they are now. Mm-hmm. So Macomb County, hey, you're probably looking at least a decade, but you got to have people there willing to do the work.
Okay. Norman, what's your thought?
I think the thought is that, just like you said before, there's a roadmap that we did, but everyone seems to forget it. Remember the outreach that we did with COVID-19, and I appreciate the most funders, everything. The COVID-19 work that we did in Detroit and also with Doug and other focus groups, we took 2 years to talk to people about getting safety. Now, it wasn't just about getting shots in your arms. It's about getting PPP, getting your healthcare checks, all those surrounding areas. Those 2 years on the ground that we did that led to every person we contact for those 2 years, 98% of them voted. Even if they never voted before, it wasn't. I understand reproductive freedom was on the bill, but the real work was done on the ground, helping those people night in, night out, day in, day week. That's why the Dems overperformed. In 2023, we did none of that. 2024, we came on the last minute of that. And so somehow, some way, we forget that. The product is there. You see all the products that folks have talked to. Anybody in Michigan has talked to folks with COVID-19 for either a year and a half or 12 months to a year and a half to get people out to vote. That's the work. That's the buying into the community. That's doing the groundwork. And then also is what Mayor Berrien did. You hire your target area. Mayor Berrien was successful because he went into those neighborhoods. He didn't had these consultants come in from outside to get volunteers at the very neighborhoods that need the sources there. He went into those neighborhoods. Hey, you live here. Why don't you work for me? Why don't you do some canvassing for me? Why don't you have your sons just knock doors for me? That's what you do. And this tactic is not known from Democrats. But the thing is that those in leadership have to realize that's the tactic to win and implement that tactic. And so what he saying is that the Dems actually had to have that talk and that leadership talk. If you're not about this work, then thank you for your service. But that's the work that's the hard work. Hire your target areas. Go into those areas that you have not been before, have not just talking about I'm talking about the suburbs, I'm talking about the inner city also. Mm-hmm. Hire your target area. Talk to people. It's going to build and build. And when it happens, you keep going there, keep that momentum going. That's the relationship building that's happening right there. And you got to be in those areas to talk to them. You got to do the work.
Well, and see, that's the thing, Joel, Norman, that, we were talking in the previous segment, talking about trying to groom people to run for office. And I know, Norman, we've talked about this, many times in the past, because just like Joel right now, Carmelinga ran twice, for that 10th congressional district seat and, was unsuccessful, both attempts. So now it's a matter of, are you going to run with Carmelinga again 2 years from now, or are you going to find, as you were mentioning, there may be other people, not necessarily for that position, but younger people that may want to run for, some positions. But looking in terms of, say, at what you may want to do or what you may want to try and look at the person that may be taking your spot, Joel, what do you suggest to him or her that may be interested in running for your spot?
There's some heavy lifting to be done. John James has won for a second time. There's a lot of talk that in 2 years, he may try to run for governor or senate or who knows what. But the fact of it is that work's got to be done on the ground. And whoever wants to take this position has got to find people that are not just placeholders. That's what we oftentimes run into, is that there's people that like to, have those things to put on their resume, we'll say, but they're not doing the work. So you got to find people that'll do the work. And just like you had said, try to get some resources so we can do some things to build that community outreach. Because the whole thing about it is I think, I tell people, Macomb County, especially during these summers, let's get some young folks working. They're not working just because they need something to do. They're working because they need that money. Right. This is not Birmingham or Grosse Pointe or Bloomfield Hills. We've got to get folks involved. And the way you do that is by hiring people, by getting them there. But, until there's a change in mindset, but also a change in leadership. And I think not just at the state level, but the national level as well. And again, Norman made a perfect point. We saw people parachute in, as I call it, into the 10th district late to try to help us. And the fact of it is you spend too much time just trying to get them, acquainted to what's going on. So, there's got to be that mindset that basically it's going to be a long, hard haul, but, they got to do the work. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, because that is a real good point that you did say, Norman, because I think the thing is that we got to start looking at people that we can start grooming, and especially people that are going to work with whoever's in that position so that they can learn from, the person that's in the office if they want to ascend to that position.
Yeah, definitely. And for that fact that we got to understand too that, folks on the ground are the experts, not somebody coming in parachute in. Because at the end of the day, everyone loves to come in Michigan because know why? A lot of the small nonprofits, a lot of the small C4s, the organic groups do the work every day. So Michigan, when you come into Michigan, it's easier for you because we'll help. I'll come on and we'll train you up and all that stuff. Even though you'll try to change the flow that we're doing, Michigan is an easy one because so many people are already doing the work. So people will parachute in. We did this. Take a picture and leave. Like Trick said, it has to be a no-fly zone on Michigan at some point in time. But hey, before you come in, we need this, we need this, we need this. Before you send anybody in, we got people on the ground. as a DNC Democrat Party, we need to do that. They had those honest conversations like, hey, funder, I know you want supporters. I know you have somebody that you know, but they're not on the ground. We're the experts. And that's the hard conversation that you got to talk to funders about. Like, hey, you keep doing it your way, you're going to be losing. But you do it our way, do it the right way, and fund us properly. I guarantee you will enjoy the bountiful wins that we always have. You get everything what you want. But you keep doing it your way. I understand it's your money, but at the same time, we are the experts on the ground. And that's the message that we have to send back to them.
Well, gentlemen, let me ask in terms of on the national level now. Let's look at the national landscape. The Democrats just recently weren't successful in putting the first African-American female into the White House. What do you think is going to happen 4 years from now? You know, we're not going to necessarily, because everybody's talking about the Trump administration. We're seeing all of the appointees, all the people that he's putting into, you know, cabinet positions and things like that. But what are you hearing, especially like 4 years from now? The Democrats have to realize you got to start grooming candidates now. You got to start identifying candidates now that could run 4 years from now. And then the same thing too. We know we got to be grooming candidates that are going to run for governor in 2 years from now. So what do we need to do, Joe?
Well, you know, what I'm afraid of is this, that nationally, the Democratic Party will go off to the right in a sense. That they'll look, you know, because they'll think like there was all this nonsensical talk about, oh, you know, wokeness and this and that and everything else. That's not it. That is not what the problem is. You didn't hear Vice President Harris talk about defunding the police or, you know, and all this other kind of stuff. We can't buy into these narratives that, you know, some of these, they're not even centrist Democrats. To me, they're more to the right, and they're pushing a lot of times Republican talking points. But what we have to do is find people, like I said, that are willing to be bold, that are willing to get out there and say, look, these are the things that we need to do. These are the things that are going to benefit everybody. Because oftentimes, you know, with other things, I know like in the county and stuff, I try to tell county leaders, look, what's good for the Black community is good for every community. So stop being scared about it. You know, stop, you know, trying to just work in certain areas and leaving other places to just die on the vine, so to speak. But if we're going to do that, we've got to have new leadership. We've got to have people that are willing to actually do what needs to be done. And a lot of that means, we've got to look at the people that are on the ground, like was said, those are the experts. You know, we can't keep doing this top-down approach. It doesn't work, you know. But the thing is, if they would push that, the donors, I think, would get behind it if they would explain exactly what needs to be done and why.
So who do you think then, Joe, real quick before I get to Norman, who do you think are the front runners for 4 years from now? And then if you want to, espouse on who do you think also are the front runners for 2 years from now for the gubernatorial seat?
Right. I think 4 years from now, you know, there's talk of Josh Shapiro out of Pennsylvania, Gretchen Whitmer, you know, of course, out of Michigan, you know, and there's some other people, but, you know, Wes Moore out of Maryland. A lot of it just, you know, unfortunately, after the Citizens United ruling, it's going to come down to money. What they're going to look at is who can raise the most money. But like I said, what I'm afraid of is they start drifting over to the right because they feel like, oh, that's what we need to do and win. But my thing is, you know, keep some self-respect and be what you're supposed to be about in the party, and just, you know, just don't go crazy just because you're trying to win.
And so let's say 2 years from now then. So you mentioned about Wes Moore, Gretchen, Josh Shapiro for maybe 4 years from now.
Right.
But what do you see about 2 years from now for that gubernatorial seat?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a bunch of folks there. You know, I think Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, Jocelyn Benson, maybe Mayor Duggan, who knows at this point. I think that's going to be, you know, a lot of folks. But the problem is, if we get too many people in a primary, it becomes a blood sport. And that's where the Dems have to understand that is, if you look at the Republicans, you know, they'll get behind Mickey Mouse if that's who they've decided they're going to run. And that's what they'll get behind of. where we a lot of times try to do these things. We beat ourselves up so much in the primary that once we go into general, it's like it's a wounded candidate.
And you raise a good point, because I say that a lot too, Joel, is that you beat yourselves up during the primary. That may be what might happen when it comes down to the mayoral election next year, in Detroit, that there may be all of the people that may be running for that mayoral seat that Duggan, has said that he's not running for re-election on. And they'll start sniping at each other, and saying things against each other. And then that makes it real difficult, especially like what Michael was saying, what you were saying, Joel, and Norman, the primary, a lot of times people, you got to do well in the primary to move on to the general election. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you give the opponents ammunition against each other when you go and attack them, and that was quite evident, especially with the congressional district race that was happening, where you had 14 candidates running for that 13th congressional district seat. And then the same thing, Joel, is, when you had, when John James, was successful, you had all of the Democrats that were running against each other, and the same thing that could have happened. But the main thing, too, is that we got to make sure that people don't just keep, there needs to be almost like a gatekeeper, where there needs to be some entity, some person, some organization, some group that seems like they can talk to folks and kind of educate people to say, hey, if we want to get this person elected, maybe this is not your time to run. Maybe the next go round, then to do something later. What are your thoughts, gentlemen?
My thoughts are exactly. I think back in the day, I know when Coleman ran politics before, after him, with Kerry Chief Kilpatrick, there was a form of folks who were in leadership, from ministers to organizations on the ground, that pretty much came together and said, okay, who are we backing? Who are we supporting? And let's go with this guy. After the bankruptcy and after Carolyn lost, all things are off the table. I think they need to go back to that, because at the end of the day, running for office should not be a job. And a lot of people who are running it all the time are getting this to collect money and get a job and get some money out of their job. There are other avenues for that person to work in, to be a part of an administration if you're not running. Say, hey, let's sit you out. We'll prepare you to help them with this area, get you in this area. That's how you get support. The mayor's race, I'm afraid that you got folks who are running who have not been around the community in 4 to 5 or 6 years. So how can you say someone anointed you to that spot, but you haven't done the groundwork to the community to say, who was you again? And these are people remember the stuff in the past, but people are, what have you done for me lately? Have you fed me lately? Have you done for this lately? What have you done for me lately? Same on the national scale. I think when we say anti-woke, what community hears is anti-black, yep, anti-truth, anti-my pain. So you don't care about me. So if I'm going to deal with racism in this election, some people say, I'm going to deal with racism. I want my wholehearted racism full, because I know where I'm coming from. I don't want the back room deal and pump me up and then bring me down at the same time. People are going to deal with the truth. And so that's probably why he was so successful. At the end of the day, if you want to win and want to support, you have to deal with truth and deal with people in a wholehearted way. Dems need to sit down and talk about these issues, have a good conversation, not just one, many conversations, come to a accord and say, hey, this is what we need to do, have a plan, and follow through the plan and keep the plan going every year. And those who are not a part of that plan, you have to address that issue also.
Well, so Norman, I'm going to ask the same question to you. So 4 years from now, 2 years from now, what do you think the political landscape may look like?
I can see her running in 4 years. I can see her running for 4 years. I know Shapiro's name's been up there. Gavin's name is up there. 4 years, the landscape's going to change whether you like it or not. We'll be more melanated country by then. People will deal with this whole Trumpism with them tariffs going to come down. It's going to have people a lot of pressure. And they may not want to get in that seat. Mm-hmm. Remember, a lot of Dems that ran against Obama and Hillary Clinton, when the economy crashed, a lot of folks didn't want there to be that pressure. Obama took it over and excelled in it. And so that front, you have to watch that also. In 2 years, what I would like to see, I mean, we have Garland is going to run. We have Benson's name is going to be out there. Duggan's name certainly is going to be out there. But we have to have an honest conversation where, okay, guys, we all can't run for this seat. Who's going to give us the best chance to win? Not just a heartfelt chance. I mean, really, if you on that ticket, you win. I could put you running for Senate. Bam, I could put you running for Congress. But we have to win. All that matters. That's all it is. And we got to be honest with that.
Well, Joe, I just want to ask you before we conclude this segment, what is the advice that your father would be giving you right now? I know as you may ascend to go on to do other things, I know you're saying that you've stepped down, from being the 10th Congressional District Chair. What advice do you think that your father would be giving you right now as to your future from this point forward?
To stay involved in the community. I mean, I'm still going to do that. I think that the fact of it is that you don't have to have an elected position to be impactful in the community. It just depends on what you choose to do. And I think, I'm blessed in that sense that I'm retired. I have the time and still the energy to do things. And that's what I want to see I live in Warren, but also within Macomb County. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be done locally, and that's really what I want to focus on, is to stay involved in the community. I'm still involved as far as a 501c3 in my hometown of Ypsilanti. So, it's something that's what I want to look at. As I said, sometimes, you got to do that handoff and let other people take the ball, but it doesn't mean that, you disappear.
Now, you mentioned about your 501c3 in Ypsilanti. Talk about that real quick before we.
That's the Friends of Rutherford Pool. The pool's named after my father, Jesse Rutherford, who was the first Black Parks and Recreation Director in Ypsilanti. So we basically run the whole thing. It's still owned by the city, but the 501c3 does, pays staff, does all the programming, does everything.
And give a website if somebody wants to get more information about it.
forpool.org, FOR pool.org. Or if you look up Friends of Rutherford Pool on Facebook also.
Okay. Well, we got to take another break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by none other than State Representative Donovan McKinney. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
This is the Finance Doctor with the Phoenix Group. We specialize in financial problems. If you're dealing with repossession, foreclosure, garnishment, or any financial problem, give us a call at 1-877-446-1664. That number again is 1-877-446-1664 for the help you need. We specialize in financial problems.
Have you ever wanted your own TV show? Have you dreamed of showcasing your talent for the world to see? Well, now you can. Have your own TV show. You can have your own 30-minute show. Not only will you be seen in the Detroit area, but you can be viewed worldwide. For more information, call 313-868-6612. Visit our studios and receive a free TV interview to promote your business, church, or organization by appointment only.
WGPR Detroit HD2.
You're watching WHPS, Highland Park, Detroit.
back to Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we are joined in the studio with another special guest of mine. As I've already mentioned, we're rejoined again by Commissioner-elect Michael Howard. And now we are joined by another person who probably is one that needs no large introduction because he is known throughout. I think he's got such a political future ahead of him, and that is State Representative Donovan McKinney. Donovan McKinney, State Representative.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. It's good to be on the show, man.
I told everybody that came in, I'm so appreciative of you all coming in. You make me feel good, in terms of say coming in, and that's the friendship, and I think that's the respect that I have for everybody that came into the show, especially on such an inclement day, as it was. How was your holiday, Donovan?
Good. It was relaxing a little bit, just watched the parade with the kids and the wife, and I got 2 young ones, so we were going to go down to the parade, but it was a little bit too chilly because my oldest one will be 3 in January. My youngest one is 9 months. He was born on Valentine's Day earlier this year, so it was a little too chilly for them. But had a good meal, hung out with some family, man, and got that time because it's needed, man. It's needed.
Absolutely, it's great to have time with family.
Yeah, how was yours?
It wasn't long enough. That's but it was rewarding because of the fact that the nail biting that I did during the Lions game.
Yeah, man. We watched the game too, man. That was a little nerve wracking towards the end.
But it was exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, it was definitely entertaining, for that part. And then just like I was telling Michael was saying that, hey, he thought that if he watched the game, the Lions might have lost the game, But like I told Michael, we're not going to worry about that. Michael, watch all the games that you want to watch. The Lions have passed that point right now. But one thing I wanted to say too, and I'm just looking, I got to bring this up since I see you with your national champion shirt. I'm a Spartan. So
I forgot about that.
But I'm gonna just ask you this one last quick question there. Yeah. So the big game is coming up.
Yeah, Saturday.
Ohio State and
tomorrow,
Michigan.
Yeah.
What's your prediction?
Michigan. I mean, those games, no matter how well or bad the team is doing overall. Like those games, it's such a heightened game because it's probably the most important game in college football, probably in entire sports. I'm gonna be honest with you, that rivalry. So it's so intense and the stakes are so high. Where I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a good game. It's at the Horseshoe, in Columbus at Ohio State this year. We beat Ohio State 3 years in a row, 3 seasons in a row.
That was under the Harbaugh.
Yeah, I know Harbaugh. But, you saw what we did against Northwestern last week. So we'll see. The momentum is on our side. But also Ohio State is ranked number 2 in the country. So it's going to be a good game. I'm thinking, I would say 24-21.
That close?
Michigan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Michael, did you have a prediction on that? Or is that one of those that you can't watch that game because Michigan loses during that time?
I'm going to be watching that game. All I got to say is go blue. There was a fun fact. There's been 100 million people born since the last time Ohio State beat Michigan. So I think we should just keep it going.
How do you know that, man?
That's why he's a commissioner.
I'm
so
like, 100 million.
Call me on trivia night.
But that's the thing, and I just wanted to ask you this real question before we kind of get into the political arena. But gentlemen, I know that it's interesting because you guys are really excited, the Wolverines, because you got a quarterback.
Oh yeah,
Belleville.
Absolutely.
Come on, Bryce, man, Underwood. We need him, man.
What was your thoughts, Michael, first in terms of say when you heard that Bryce was going to be coming to change from LSU to come to Michigan?
I mean, I'm always a fan when somebody from the state plays at the University of Michigan. I feel like folks should stay in their home state. It's just homegrown. The NIL really is changing the game. I think some of that's for the better, some of it's for the worse. Players deserve. I mean, you look at University of Michigan, Texas, Alabama. These are some of the most high profiting businesses across our nation. Like their employees deserve to get paid and more than just a college scholarship. So I'm okay with the NIL to an extent, but I'm excited that we actually get a good quarterback.
Well, it's interesting too that here, Michael Donovan. I know when I met you, Michael, was through Donovan.
Yes, sir.
And when Donovan came on a radio show that I had a couple of years ago, And then he brought this young man into the studio with him. I had never met you before. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, now here, Darwin, this is Michael Howard. Michael Howard, this is Darwin. And we got, well acquainted during the time that you ran for city council. And now as you, ran and successfully, won for the commissioner seat. But my question to you, Michael, is that now you've had a lot of time to spend with Donovan during the time that he was running and now during the time that you were running and successful. What advice now, him as a state representative, what advice would you give him now? And then I'm going to ask Donovan the same question to you. What advice would you give to him?
Oh, that's a great question. I would first say thank you. I think when we first met, I just randomly walked into your studio with Donovan, and you allowed me to be on your radio show. And I was like, this is the first time I was ever on the radio. So I was really excited. Bucket list item checked off. So thank you so much for that. I would say to State Rep Donovan McKinney is just stay true to your values. I think you look at politicians so often, we see the negative, and whether anyone in leadership, and sticking true to your core values when you're making tough decisions. Like, there's compromises that you have to make in deals and in negotiations, but one thing you should never compromise is your values, because as somebody that I look up to, my kids know his name, my kids know his family, they're looking up for him for the next few generations. I want them to be able to say he's a man of conviction.
So if I had to ask you then real quick, Michael, what is the one word that you would use to describe Donovan? What's the one word that you would use?
Hard work. Hard work.
Well, see, I would look at Donovan, instead of saying the word hard work, I would think it's heart's work, because it seems like it comes from his heart.
Comes from his faith.
Exactly.
His faith that I admire. Faithful work.
And we know that works is, is not dead. So
yes,
we know that it lives through Donovan and all of the things that he represents. Donovan, let me throw that same question out to you.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to newly elected Michael Howard, commissioner in Warren?
So that's
in Combs County, rather.
Yes, it's an easy question because we were just talking about it in the waiting room, and it's all about the service, right? And so, don't get caught up in the politics of it all. I like to call it how to deal with personalities and politics of the board and things that might even be out of your control and above you. In reality, do what you came here to do. Follow your purpose. And remember why you ran for office, and remember why people elected you. And they elected you to serve them. And so do everything you can for your district and bring back resources home. And that's really your job as any public official. So bring back resources, connect the dots, and help folks. Because folks are struggling right now, man. And especially in our areas that we represent, a lot of it is, the southern part of the Warren. And then even Centerline too, people are going through a lot. So they need us to be that beacon of hope and to continue to shine that light and, positivity. So that's what I say to Mike. And I'm just proud of him. And I'm so glad that he got elected at this point in time, because people are losing so much hope within the system. And so they need us to say, hey, you know what? I got a guy that's in office that's going to do the right thing on our behalf.
And see, that's one of the things that I think that Joel was mentioning too, when talking about, the folks like our ages, Joel and my age, and then looking at the young, prospect of persons that could be running for office, for the future. And you all represent that next generation to do some of the things. And it's just up to us to try and go and help to make that path easier for you to, to ascend into. But the same question I'm going to ask you, Donovan, what's the one word that you would go and describe Michael as?
That's a good question. Let me see. I would say, it's not necessarily one word, it's like a phrase, like he's never given up.
But that's the same with you.
Yeah, like never giving up. Like he lost before, and I lost before too. And it stings, it hurts. You might want to give up. You might want to just, crawl in the hole and somewhere and just try to lick your wounds. But he came out swinging, and I told him that because when a lot of people run for office the first time, you might not win. Like very rarely you do win your first time. Very rarely that happens. And so, I told him, like, in order for you to come back and do it again, like, stick with it. Stay in the community. Stay steadfast, and, like, let the community members know that you're here to serve them at the end of the day. No matter what your title is, no matter if you get in office, it's about the service. And I always bring that back to Michael, because that was taught to me by my grandmother and my mom and, people that raised me. So, I just wanted to pay it forward and let folks know. When you serve the folks, people are going to remember that. And they're going to put you in places where you deserve to be.
And see, that's the one thing I look at the two of you, because of the fact that, like you were saying down so eloquently, that even though you may have lost the first time, it doesn't mean that you're a loser.
Yeah.
It just meant that there were some things that you needed to do different. Just as you were saying, Michael, in the earlier segment that we did, you knew there were some things that you could have done different when you ran for state rep that now you've utilized as your ascent to becoming a Macomb County Commissioner. And now, from mistakes that you may have made in the past, now you make certain that for whatever future that you have as an elected official, you won't commit those same mistakes, again. And then at the same time, too, you'll both spread that legacy and the mistakes that you've made onto others so that they won't make those same mistakes. We know you've got to raise money. We know you've got to get out there and knock on doors, as I know, Donovan, you and I talked about this previously on shows that we've done before. And Michael, I know you have learned that same thing. It's a matter of knocking on doors and knocking on as many doors as you possibly can, because people want to meet you. They want to see you. They want to interact with you, as opposed to seeing all of the things that they see on a kicker card or what they see, on like flyers or something like that. So, Donovan, I asked him, the question. So if a young person that wants to run, we talked about looking at civic engagement.
Yeah.
And I know I was talking to Michael, and Michael was talking about, an initiative that he's doing, trying to make certain that young people that may want to run, how to help them to ascend into understanding the political process and what obstacles could be or what hurdles that they may have to get through. And hearing it from both of you, knowing you've been there, done that, that's what they need to hear, especially from people their age. They can hear it from me and the Joels and other folks, our age, but to hear it from contemporaries, people that are close in age to them, that's what I think that younger people need to hear, because sometimes they may think that people like, my age, Joel's age, might be talking at them. But you gentlemen probably do more talking with them as opposed to talking at them. And it's not that me and Joel or others our ages would be talking at them. More so, we'd be talking with them, because it's a matter of listening and hearing what people need. And I know down the times that we've done shows before, that's what you so eloquently mentioned about. You want to hear the voice of the people.
Yeah.
And I know that's one of the things that I would say to you, Michael, as you grow in success, to be the person that listens to people, listen to your constituents, in your district, to hear what they want. And then that will probably go on echo more so, because in your position, you spend the money as a commissioner.
Yeah.
In your position, Donovan, with some of the committees that you chair, you may have access to a lot of the monies that the state offers, whereas you got in the county, but you got the state. And I know that's something we'll talk about, Donovan, in our next segment, with you, when we talk about the lame duck session that the legislators up in Lansing, are kind of going through. But what is it that, Donovan, how you can assist Michael, especially, let's talk more on the local level in Macomb County?
Yeah, so some of the things, and we've been already talking and getting a head start about, some funding initiatives that, like possibly some community centers that need to be funded in our district, because in South Warren, there's a lack of access to community centers in that area. One in particular is the Owen Jacks Center, which is located on 9 Mile, just east of Van Dyke, in the south part of Warren. And, that building needs updating, right? And needs to be, brought up to code and, ensuring that it's ADA accessible, things of that nature. So, I think under the last administration with Mayor Fouts, I think during COVID, they, shut that building down, and it's kind of been, lackluster in terms of like opening up fully. So, we've been talking about figuring out how to get some state support dollars, couple it with what the counties can do, and see what the city can chip in and get that building up to code so it can serve those community members in that area, in that neighborhood. Because I do believe that, South Warren is a little like Northeast Detroit. What divides it is just the 8-mile border, but very similar issues in terms of having access to programs in a safe space, whether it's for a working environment, to play, to live, to learn. And that's really what all of our community members deserve. So that's something we talked about in terms of initiative for funding. But so many other things like mental health, facilities and building up support for, transit and making our areas more walkable. That's how you want to keep the younger generation here in our state and our region.
So, Michael, let me ask you. So now you've got a newly elected mayor for the city of Warren, and how? Just give me your assessment of how you think that the transition from a Fouts administration to the newly elected mayor, Stone's administration, how has that transition been?
Yeah, I would say Warren is a little bit different than most cities, where we reelect not just the mayor, but we have 10 elected officials in the city of Warren: mayor, treasurer, clerk, and 7 city council members. All of them are up for election all at the same time. So it's not just a new administration with the Mayor Stone from Mayor Fouts. It's an entirely new city council. Our treasurer and clerk remained the same. And I think there's definitely some hurdles on how do we work and function together as a city, as all of our elected bodies. It's no secret to anyone, I'm not a huge fan of our clerk. I think she really struggled in handling local elections. And then working with the city council and the mayor has been difficult. And so I think the city is trying to figure out, Mayor Fouts was in office for 40 years. He was 26 years as a city council member, mayor for 14 years. And so that's just such a huge changeover that it does indeed take time to reallocate or readapt to what does a new Warren look like. And so I think Warren is going through a transition phase of trying to figure out what is the post-Fouts Warren look like? What is the next generation of Warren? And I think we're just experiencing some growing pains. But we have a great city council that has really done a great job of working together. And so how do you bring all 10 of those elected officials into the room where they can work and say that at the end of 4 years, really after the next 3 years, we delivered for the people?
So also too, I want to ask you too, Michael, with the police administration there in the city of Warren, that I know that you recently just brought, is it a superintendent in, or is it a police chief? Who is that new person that you brought in recently?
So he starts in December. I think his first day is actually December 8th.
Okay.
But he's going to be our new police commissioner, originally from Southfield, Michigan area, was a police chief over there for a long time, and then was in Albany, New York for a few years, and now he's coming back to Michigan. He'll be the first Black police commissioner in Warren's history.
And he's taking, who's it, Dwyer?
Commissioner Dwyer,
right.
who was a long time. I think Commissioner Dwyer was in policing for 60 years. And so it's kind of that situation again. You have this person that was in office or in this position for a long time, and now you have to make that changeover. For Commissioner Hawkins, our newly appointed commissioner, what I love about him, one, it was a unanimous approval from the mayor and also the city council. Several of our city council members previously worked with him when they were lower level cops in policing. But he has a passion for community policing, and that has been something that I've advocated a lot for. is a real genuine community policing program. If we want to say like there's not an issue with policing, even though I would disagree with that. If you want to say like kids shouldn't have an issue to fear, have some concern around police, which I partially disagree with that. We need to see interactions with police and civilians, so to speak, that are not when they're putting someone in handcuffs, or not in a time where I'm calling you because I'm experiencing a traumatic event. I should be able to see my officers just in normal business, which several of our officers in Warren, I do have that kind of relationship with. You know, I know their coffee order because we talk, you know. But I think the more of that you'll see more people, especially people of color, wanting to become officers. Like a friend of mine just got sworn in as a Detroit police officer, young Black guy, and so excited for stuff like that. So I'm excited for the changes that are beginning to happen.
And, you know, and it's so sad that sometimes you don't want to see it where there's a situation that happened, like recently in Warren, with the two gentlemen that had, you know, gotten, you know, killed in that auto accident. And, you know, and it was, you know, recently been seeing on the news where I think that they're looking at charges, I guess, against one of the police officers that was involved in that accident. But, you know, our prayers, you know, go out to the family of both of those gentlemen that, you know, were, you know, killed in that accident. But, you know, you've had some interesting negative publicity with what happened with the policing, you know, there in Warren with the one young man. I believe he was incarcerated, or he was in the area where they had him, and I think his face was being pressed onto the ground, and, you know, in that situation that happened. And now here, this situation with the police and the accident where two, you know, Black men were, you know, killed in that accident. But, you know, again, our deepest, you know, sympathies and condolences are extended, you know, to the family, because I was looking at some reports about the two young men and how, you know, there's a lot of litigation now that's going to be coming up when it comes down to what really occurred. Was there really, you know, a stakeout? Was it really a, you know, a thought that there was a stolen car that they were going through the intersection, you know, up here on 8 Mile near, I think it was Sherwood, you know, up in that area. But, you know, again, our hearts go out to the families. But, you know, is there anything, Michael, that you'd like to say in the short period of time that we've got left as to what you'd like to do, what you want to let your constituents in your district know? Michael Howard, commissioner, newly elected commissioner, this is what I'm going to stand on during the 4 years that I'm in office, and you're not going to let anybody know that if there's a need, if there's a call to your office, you're going to address that. But what would you say to your constituents before we let you go?
I think the first thing is just being open. You know, when I ran for office, my personal cell phone number was on my literature. Somebody say, "Oh, get a fake Google number." I said, no, like I believe that somebody needs to reach out to me. They can reach out to me directly. And so
you want to give that number?
All of my literature, website, and everything, it's 586-213-3197. And folks can feel free to call me, leave me a voicemail. I'm slow at responding text messages, so I'm not a typical millennial, but give me a call and I'll definitely be responsive. But my main goal is just bringing back the county resources for the community, and also gathering people together and creating space, because I'm just one person. You know, now I was voted in by, 17,000 people, but I can't do this work alone. And if I sit in the seat and I'm not in the neighborhood and in the communities, then I'm not doing my job. And so folks will know my name, they will know my number, they'll know my family, because it takes all of us together to do this work. And so we are starting community coffee hours at the Dovetail Coffee Shop the first and third Friday of the month.
Where's that located?
It's on like 11 Mile in Hoover,
okay.
Dovetail Cafe. And so we're going to be launching that in December. I think the first Friday is December 6th. And so we're going to be meeting with people, hearing about needs, hearing about issues, and how we can tap, whether city, county, or state, or even federal, how can we come together as a people and make our world a better place?
Give your number one last time. 586-213-3197.
And then you can also follow follow me on Facebook, Michael Howard Commissioner, Macomb County Commissioner, District 12.
And I'm going to give you an opportunity. I don't do this with most of my guests, but I'm going to give you an opportunity. Let your wife and your children know how much you appreciated them standing behind you during that time. I know, Donovan, you've talked about that with me on the radio show before, and even on the TV show. But what would you say to your wife and your children for all that time and those hours that you spent outside of the household, that now you are able to go and do what you have to be dad and to be husband. Right.
I am so thankful for my wife and kids. My wife is just, when someone said, how did you know she was the one? I said, when I didn't, I don't think any of us really know, but for me, it was, I saw her faith, and I knew that this is somebody that if something tragic happened to me, that this is the woman that I could trust to raise my kids in the way that I would do so. And I love her for that. She's held down our house for the last several years, and my kids are so gracious. You know, I had this conversation with my daughter. Her birthday was coming up, and I had a campaign event, and it was like coinciding, and it was like, I'm going to not do it, but I just, you know, and I talked to her about it. She's like, no, Daddy, I think you should do that, and then we can spend time on a different day where you're focused on us. And it was just,
how old is she?
She's 7.
Well, 7 going on 27.
I know, like my kids are insanely smart, and so it's so crazy because I'm growing these little humans, but also I look up to them so much. I have 3 kids, 7, 5, and 3, and so our hands are full, but my daughter just got done doing a government section in her class.
Give the names and give your wife's name so we can do a shout out to them.
My wife is Emma Lee, and my oldest is Isabella, and my son is Michael Jerome Howard III, named after, well, my dad, but me. And my little girl is Mariah, and she's the trooper of our house. Like, she is gonna be my fierce little girl. And so I'm just so thankful that God blessed me with some amazing kids, an amazing wife. You know, the Bible says, it kind of gives an illustration of a man that has a quiver full of arrows will live a long life. And as we talk about, like, why did I even run in public office? It wasn't necessarily for us. I'm 31 years old, going on 32. It was for the next generation. I want my kids to inherit a better world than I received. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity to do that. I'm thankful that I can count on them to be in my corner every step of the way.
Well, we are so fortunate that you were able to come on Truth to Power today. We definitely have to invite you to come back on, again. But so just the last question I'll ask you before we turn this segment over to the break is that of your 3 children, which one do you think may ascend to want to be the next elected official in the, in the family?
I think it's going to be one of my girls. My
So not
my son.
Right?
No, I don't think so. My oldest daughter, she has met all of her elected officials, all the way up through the governor. The only one that I think she hasn't met personally is A.G. Denton Nessel. We were riding a bus the other day a couple years ago on a field trip, and she goes, "Oh, this road is messed up. Like, we need to call the mayor to address this." And I was like, "Well, this is a county road." And she's like, "Oh, well, now I know who to talk to about that." So she really has a grasp on how things work. And I think just my youngest daughter has such a tenacious, like, she's the fighter in the family. And so she loves to fight for the right reasons. And my son, he's probably going to be an engineer. He's so smart and just so focused on science and things like that. And so for me, I'm just glad to be along the journey with them. But, they want to run for office, I'll definitely be their first donor.
Darwin, real quick, if we got a little bit of time, just want to say this before Commissioner Howard or Commissioner-elect Howard leaves. He's going to be playing basketball in our celebrity charity basketball game in Toy Drive. It's going to take place the Saturday before Christmas. So Saturday, December 21st. Doors open at 2 p.m. We'll have the Lieutenant Governor, others there. This is our 2nd annual. Last year, we had over 1,000 people. It's going to be at Warren Lincoln High School, 9 Mile, just east of Van Dyke. Again, Saturday, December 21st at 2 p.m. If you want to see the Commissioner-elect play ball and some others, make sure you come out there.
And I'm coming to play.
Yeah.
and it gets some toys for some kids.
Yeah, so
that's the important part.
So admission is just a $10 or donate $10 or donate a toy.
Unwrapped gift.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Okay. We got to take a break. Commissioner-elect Howard, we appreciate you for coming on the show today. Drive safely.
Thank you.
Have a very, very enjoyable rest of this holiday weekend. And State Rep Donovan McKinney, see you back for the last half an hour of Truth to Power today. Thank you.
Love it.
Watkins Broadcasting is going worldwide. Now you can watch Detroit's own WHPR on your TV from anywhere in the world. No matter where you are, you can stay in the know with WHPR TV and Roku. You can get your easy-to-install Roku box from wherever you shop for your entertainment gear. Once your Roku box is connected to your TV and internet, go to the channel store on the home menu of the Roku box. Enter WHPR TV in the search engine and add it to your channels. That's it. That's all you need to get the best in entertainment, news, and talk, no matter where you are. Roku brings all of your favorites to your TV. Netflix, Hulu Plus, Crackle, HBO Go, and now WHPR TV, Detroit Live.
My fear is not being myself and putting others in harm whenever I'm under the influence. Did you know drivers with a BSC of .08 are 4 times more likely to get in a crash than those with a 0?
There is a reason why the legal drinking age is 21. Underage drinking is ugly because teens who start to drink before the age of 15 are 12 times more likely to be unintentionally injured.
Over 300 fatal crashes and almost 4,000 injury crashes were alcohol related.
Death is ugly, especially since this avoidable accident. Yet on average, every 52 minutes, an alcohol-impaired driving fatality occurs.
Fees and fines are ugly and I want to get paid, not owing anybody money. If everyone obeyed new driving policies with a BAC of no more than .05, alcohol-impaired driving fatalities, injuries, and total costs could decrease by 71 through 77%.
Help us remind others to not be ugly with alcohol and keep alive with .05. This message was brought to you by the Center for Urban Youth and Family Development. For more information on how you can get involved, email admin@mycap.org.
And you are watching Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and this is our last half an hour, and we are joined in the studio by none other than State Representative Donovan McKinney and Detroit Change Initiative CEO, Mr. Norman Clement. But just want to kind of touch upon this last half an hour. I know that Donovan, this is the lame duck session. And explain what, people hear the term lame duck, but explain what is lame duck? What does that mean?
So lame duck is the period after the general election to the end of the year. So, really from Thanksgiving for the most part to Christmas, that's lame duck. So that period is the period where the current administration and the current folks with the power, do everything they possibly can last minute before the transition of the guard, before we have to give up the power, at least in the state house, to the Republicans. So right now, Democrats have a trifecta, which means we have Democratic majority in the Senate, Democratic majority in the state house, and then Democrats at the governor, lieutenant governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State, and Supreme Court. But because of the election results back in November, a few weeks ago, we lost the State House. So that trifecta is no longer existent starting January 1.
So explain too now, my understanding too is that Speaker of the House, Joe Tate,
yes,
will no longer be Speaker of the House?
No. He was our first Black Speaker of the House. And he will no longer, as of January 1, be the Speaker.
Can you explain why? Why is that?
Because Democrats lost the gap. So right now we have a 1-seat majority in the State House. You need 56 votes to get anything. It's a 110-seat chamber. So you need 56. So that's plus one majority. And that's what we have in terms of Democrats right now in the State House. And Republicans have 54. Starting January 1, because of the election turnout and the results, we lost 4 Democratic seats. So that means Republicans will have a 3-seat majority in the State House starting January 1. Maybe 2, because it's one that's so close out there in Battle Creek right now with Jim Hosmer. He's the current state rep, a Democrat. He's fighting for his life. He's down by just a couple, maybe 17, 18 votes or something like that. So they have to do a recount.
Okay.
Yeah.
Normally, I know you usually act as my co-host when I
Yeah.
usually, have you with me and
No
stuff.
problem.
But did you have a question for Donovan?
Yeah, I definitely have a question for Donovan.
Yeah.
I know you've been the hardest working man in the state right there. So, question is that is there any bills that I know there's a couple of bills that people are pushing through lame duck?
Yeah.
I mean, and then some bills are sitting, and so
yes,
I know we encourage all of our state reps to come to work.
Yeah.
Come to there to get stuff done. Especially talking with the new chief of police, Bedison. They have an $18 million safety budget for the city of Detroit that has to be passed. And so, what do you say to your congressman that we need everybody to come in to have a quorum, to have a session, that, hey, $18 million for Detroit police, for communities policing safety.
Yeah.
Detroit, it's down 60 years it's been down, and we may be even down even more. And so what can you say to your colleagues and say, hey, let's get in this last couple of weeks, push what the people want, get it through.
Yeah.
So cities like Detroit, Battle Creek, get the initial safety, the dollars in, so community policing could be implemented, and we have another year of safety and policing in citizens in Detroit.
Yeah, no,
Anyway, Highland Park also.
The major issue, and I want to highlight this, is you're right about that, the $18 million, and then also it's about CVI, Community Violence Intervention.
Absolutely.
I led that initiative because I'm the only Democrat, or not the only Democrat, I'm the only Detroiter in the State House on Appropriations Committee. And so a lot of that funding comes through on my desk for me to vote on and champion. And so I championed not only funding public safety in perpetuity, but community groups that touch on community violence.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's about making sure that community groups have those resources when they're telling folks like, hey, you know what? You might want to put that gun down or their weapon down. Hey, you know what? You need a job, or you need your utilities taken care of. Because a lot of times people do some petty crime, or they get all angst up and mad because they have bills to pay. They don't know where the next meal is going to come from. They need resources. So these dollars are essential. And so to my colleagues, I asked them, hey, not only show up to work, but the issue is, and I'll tell you this, the reason why people want to blame it on the red wave that we lost the majority. That, Republicans, got more votes than us, which is true. But in reality, the reason why we lost the State House, if you dissect it, and we only lost like 4 seats, potentially, maybe 3. And each of those seats we lost by very close margins. But we outraised the Republicans in terms of a State House races. So we outraised the Republicans close to 6-1.
Wow.
And the reason why we lost is, one, our messaging, right? We did not communicate what the Democratic trifecta meant and did for the people of our state. and for the people of the city of Detroit. So people did not feel, captivated or motivated to vote for us. And then 2, we left a lot of things on the table. That's why the lame duck is so important. So not only pushing those bills, but we talked about Warren issues earlier in the conversation, Darwin, about the Warren police. Like, I got the police accountability package right now that needs a vote. That's going to ensure that at the end of the day, we protect officers who are doing good, and then we whittle out the bad ones that need to leave because they're taking advantage of the badge. Mm-hmm. And I tell folks all the time, not every officer is taking advantage of the badge. A lot of them are sacrificing and putting their lives on the lines and doing everything possibly they can to uphold the law and do what's right for us and protect us. But those ones who are taking advantage and who are not doing what they're supposed to do, those are the ones you kind of hear on the news. And those are the ones we need to hold accountable, because guess what? We're at risk as community members, as residents, our loved ones, because they're the ones who are getting harmed and beat up and sometimes killed, sad to say. And so, these are the things that we need to be working on. Water affordability is another issue, right? We're going to be the first state, if we pass this and get this done and the governor signs it, we'll be the first state in the country to ever have a statewide water affordability program, which is needed because the cost of utilities is outrageous. You want to talk about groceries, but if you don't have running water at your house, what can you do? I'm going to be honest with you. I've been through that personally growing up. Like, it sucks. And so, we want to make sure that everybody has access to clean and affordable water. Another thing that's up for grabs right now that we can get done is maternal health package, right? To ensure that, our Black women who are having our babies, who are literally producing life, are not dying because of childbirth. We still have some of the highest rates in the nation. And that's impacting women of color, but in particular Black women. And then one more thing, and I'll pass, and I'll answer any other questions. And actually, I lost my train of thought. My bad. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah. So many other things.
So many other things. I think about the gun violence prevention bill that finally is getting through, but so many things that people rely on the lame duck has to happen passed. So we encourage our visitors, if you have someone that's not showing up, truth to power is that folks got to show up and do their job and do the work that needs to be done. Yeah. And then I definitely thank you for all the work that you've been doing and definitely continue to do. Like I said, Darwin, it's about community and those who show up for you. There's still, after a tough loss, there's so many things that you have to do.
Yeah.
There's so many things you still have to do. You still have to, no matter what, you got to get up, battle, fight another day, keep the fight going. And so
I got one thing. This is what I remember. I got the bill that takes money out of politics.
Whoa.
And this is why money does not always win. We saw that in this last election. I talked about it. Our House Democratic Caucus raised $37 million for our state house races across the state. This is more money in the history of any other caucus, Democrat or Republican, in the state's history for state house purposes. We outspent, like I said before, Republicans close to 6-1. The reason why we lost, and one of the reasons, that's not the driving factor, but I believe one of the reasons why we lost is because in order to get that money, right, you have to agree to do something. That money just doesn't come out of thin air without any attachment to it. You're going to have to deliver something for folks or not deliver. Right? And so part of the money that got sent to our caucus, I'm going to be honest, is, hey, you know what? Don't do this right now. Don't do this piece of legislation right now. Hold up on this, hold up on that. We're going to win it so we can do the things that we need to do for the people of our state later on down the line. But guess what? That later isn't coming. January comes, Republicans have control again. And what are we left with? A lot of things that are left on the table that people are mad at because we didn't get done. So that's what this lame duck is for. But people try to compare this lame duck to back in 2018 when Rick Snyder, his last year in office, former Governor Rick Snyder, and the Republicans had their trifecta, which they had majorities in the House and Senate as well in 2018. And what happened was Republicans had a 7-seat majority at that particular time. Democrats only have 1. So any one of us can get in an accident or have a health issue or decide not to show up to work or decide, hey, I'm not going to support that policy. And the game of the politics, I like to call it, is that Republicans don't necessarily have to vote their conscience or vote the right way or do the right thing because they know they're going to get the gavel. They're going to hold the power come January. So they don't have to give us any votes right now because they can control the agenda in January. So it's just it's like a catch-22. It's like, dang if you don't, dang if you do. So we're trying to figure out how to pass policy. What a 1-member majority where any one of us can hold up legislation. That's been a lot of the issues. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because you just sparked something to me, and I'm mad because as a strategist, as an organizer strategist, you want to get everything done. And even if I might say I play football, you want to get everything done that you wanted to do off rip. When you win, you run everything through. For someone that raise funds, to give you funds to say, hold off on something, tells you the problem of of some of the strategists in the DNC right now. Because you assuming that you assuming that you have this.
And that you're going to have it.
Yeah, you're going to have later
for the next term and the next term. And nothing's promised.
Nothing's promised, nothing's gained. And so what happens is that we see right now, okay, you're not going to put the work in to get it because you assume, oh, we get it. It'll be all right. It'll be all right. It'll come back in. And that type of mindset has been working against us for so far long. We should be further ahead than where we are. Way ahead than where we are. Stuff like that.
Too complacent, too comfortable. And, the sad thing about it, and, I love my colleagues. I think our Speaker of the House, Joe Tate, first Black speaker ever in the history of our state, has done an amazing job shepherding some of the big legislative ticket items that we needed to get done in terms of a Democratic Party. When it comes to the Black agenda, we have not done the things we needed to do because we were trying to play. We got caught up in the system and tried to play the politics instead of saying, hey, you know what? Put it on the board for a vote. Let's see what we can do. If we don't have the votes right now, let's see what we can do to get the votes later on. But we're coming up to such a time crunch where we only got a few weeks left, literally less than a month left of legislative session. And at the end of the day, like if we don't get it done, it's probably not going to get done for years to come.
Right.
So, our back's against the wall and we're frantic and trying to figure out, and we're scrambling, trying to figure out how to get things done. But in reality, we might not get everything we need to get done because the clock's going to run out.
And time is ticking.
Yeah.
And that's what happens it also breeds frustration to those working class voters who are Black and browns who are saying, you know what, I'm going to be independent.
Or just stay at home.
Stay at home.
And we saw them stay at home. Like the ones that came out to vote, we voted Democrat heavily,
right.
Black and brown. But in reality, people stayed at home. We broke records in 2018, 2020, and 2022 because people believed that Democrats were going to do a lot of things that kind of got held up this time around. And so we made that mistake, and I'll take ownership of that too because I'm part of that. But in reality, I'm hoping in lame duck we can get some more things done where we can convince people and we can message and say to folks in 2026 in the next election cycle, hey guys, look what Democrats did. Look what we can continue to do to build on that momentum.
And I think with that, in 2026, this loss had to happen. Now, like I said, it had to happen because at the end, I'm thinking about Eberflus. They had the game won and didn't have a timeout. It had to happen because for a long time, we put the autopsy off. It's time to do the autopsy. Take out what you need to take out, put in what you need to put in, and move forward. If you don't do the autopsy, no matter what, it's going to get worse. And so this is the time where we come together, look what we got to go through it, take it out it is, and then learn and grow from it and be better from it.
Yeah.
No egos. No egos.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was going to say ego to me stands for easing God out. Easing God out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, when we talk about egos, there's a ton of them in the politics world. But we always got to focus on, I always touch on this, Darwin. We got to get back to the basics, get back to the fundamentals, and it's about the service.
So, Donovan, now you're got another term of office.
Yes.
For another 2 more years. What's on your agenda?
So, if we don't get, like, the ticket items I said, police accountability, water affordability, pre-child braille reform, second look, like all these pieces like productivity credits, the public safety, CBI bills. If we don't get none of those done, then it's going to roll over, and I got to work with the Republicans to get it done next term. But in reality, next term, at the end of the day, we're going to be in split government, so things are going to slow down, and things are going to be at risk because on a federal level, at our U.S. Congress and U.S., so the U.S. House, U.S. Senate, and the president, they have a Republican trifecta on a federal level, with a U.S. Supreme Court that's leaning Republican. So a lot of them are going to be gutting stuff. A lot of the programs that we help fund this time around, whether it's through ARPA dollars or, state support. So like we're going to have to play defense a lot of the times, and try to figure out ways to protect some of the funding initiatives we funded this time around. So, and that's protecting your health care. A lot of people with pre-existing conditions are at risk because they're trying to gut ACA, Affordable Care Act. Another thing that's going to be probably gutted and looked at is the Department of Education. So all of our children's impacted, including my own.
Yeah.
Got 2 little ones. I talked about it earlier. And then it's like some other things in terms of investing in, Black and brown small businesses, the quote unquote DEI,
SBA.
diversity, equity, and inclusion. All those things are going to be impacted. And the people that look like us, Black and brown folks, and the working class, we're going to see a lot of things that we do not need to happen. But in reality, I hope it's a wake-up call that we can all organize around and say, hey, we got to get the right people in office, no matter which party, but in reality, who's going to represent our interests the best.
So, Donovan, I had asked Michael and asked Joel earlier. So 2 years from now, 4 years from now, how do you think the political landscape is going to be, especially on the Democratic side? Because like you were just saying earlier, trying to groom the next person to run, in terms of, say, like for the president, we know that Gretchen Whitmer's term, ends.
Yeah.
And she's going to be out of office, under gubernatorial fire in 2026. So are you hearing any people that may be in the, looking at the political landscape? I know we talked earlier, I think there was a talk about Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist possibly running for governor, in 2026. But I know you also represent parts of Detroit.
Yes.
So what do you think in terms, say, for like, we're talking about the mayor's race
next year,
city council next year. So what are your thoughts about next year, 2 years from now, and then 4 years from now?
So in 2025, it's our municipal election, our city's election in the city of Detroit. Our last city election, at least in the primary, which was, I believe, was in 2021, we had the lowest turnout in the history of our city. In the August primary 2021 for mayor and city council. And so, like, we have to get engaged. The reason why, like, people are fed up with, and, it's not a knock on anybody that's serving right now, but the reason why people are fed up with the system is because folks don't participate long term. The system only works for those who participate. And so everything's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to, a change of guard isn't going to like change everything all at one time. However, you have to stay committed to the fight and utilizing your tools as a citizen. And voting is just one tool. It's not the end all be all, but it's just one tool you have to utilize. And so for 2025, there's a lot of people that's going to run for mayor. A lot of folks is going to run for city council. We have to look at and vet people. And then leading up into 2026 with the gubernatorial for governor, attorney general, secretary of state, on down to the state senate and state house, we have to look at folks that are going to say, hey, you know what? Are you going to represent my best interest? What have you done for me? We have to look at people's resumes and say, hey, what actually have you done for my community, my area? You know, not just for certain people, but like have my neighborhood changed? Because
and that makes a big difference right
yeah.
there. Gentlemen, we got to wrap up. We got another show coming on with Reverend James Torrance. But I do want to thank you, State Representative Donovan McKinney, for coming out and being on Truth to Power today.
Thank you,
Norman, as
darling.
always, appreciate you, Detroit Change Initiative, coming on and helping me to make this happen. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin. We definitely hope that everybody, whether or not you get out there and you shop online or you shop in person, be safe, drive carefully, and we hope to see you very, very soon. Peace.